Hello and welcome to our webinar hosted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia's Community Development Studies and Education Department. Our topic today is At the Intersection of Education and Employment, Creating Workforce Development Programs for High School Students. I'm Jean Rourke from the Federal Reserve, and I'll be your facilitator. Let me be the first to introduce and thank our presenters for today's call. They are Keith Rowland, Jesse Azrilian, Ellen Horan, Dana Igretsky, and Heather Volute. If you've joined us via webinar, you'll see us jump to slide 2 to cover a few call logistics. You may have noticed that the webinar tool offered the option to listen to the audio through your PC speakers or over the phone. The quality of the PC audio does depend on your connection, so at any time, feel free to dial into the bridge number. And if you'd like to see the slides a bit larger, click on the small gray box at the top right of the slide window. This will maximize the slide for you. Okay, this call is being recorded, and the archive will be available in the next few days. It will be posted to the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia's Community Development Studies page. You can ask questions of our speakers. They'll be answering questions at the end of the content, but at any time during the session, you can type your question into the chat window using the Ask Question button on your screen. Okay, we'll turn to slide 3 for some legal language. The views expressed here are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent the views of the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia or the Federal Reserve System. And with that said, I'll turn to slide 4 and turn it over to Keith Rowland.
Thank you very much, Jean. I want to extend a warm welcome to our listeners and speakers this afternoon. I want to say a word about our department. The Philadelphia Fed's Community Development Studies and Education Department promotes community development and access to credit in low and moderate income communities. One of the issues our department is active on is workforce development. In this area, we focus on needs and opportunities for young people between 16 and 24. We're involved through events, webinars, research, and publications. Today, you'll hear from an excellent faculty on best practices and innovative approaches in workforce development programs for high school students. You'll hear from each speaker for 10 to 15 minutes, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions. First up is Jesse Azrilian. She directs education partnerships for the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. She'll highlight some national models and best practices in chamber activity. She previously consulted for the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce Foundation and has held other positions with the California Charter School Association and the Los Angeles Unified School District. Following Jesse is Ellen Horan. She's president and CEO of the Greater Reading, Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She'll talk about how chambers can play an important collaborative role in bringing together people and programs that need to be involved in the local community. The Reading Chamber has a membership base of 1,500 member companies. Ellen is also a member of the advisory board of the Educational Attainment Division of the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. Next will be Dana Igretsky, president of the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce Foundation. She'll share lessons from a remote internship program that the foundation developed. Dana oversees the Business Coalition for Educational Excellence, which advocates for policies in K-12 education reform, and which was the basis of an award from the Education Trust. She also oversees a program called Learn, Do, Earn, which was selected by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Institute for a Competitive Workforce as one of 10 best practices. Earlier, Dana was a public middle and high school science teacher. The next speaker will be Heather Volute. She is Advocacy Director of the Lancaster, Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She'll explain how the Chamber's online tool enables students to connect with local businesses on career exploration opportunities, such as job shadowing, mentorships, and internships. She's responsible for strategic collaborations between business and education. She previously had a similar role with the Building Trade Association and has also worked in the banking industry. Jesse, I'll now turn it over to you, and we look forward to your remarks.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you for inviting me to present today. I'll start with a brief overview on the next slide of ACCE, the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, and its Education Attainment Division. So ACCE is a professional association representing leadership and staff from over 1,300 chambers of commerce and business associations. The division, the Education Attainment Division, EAD for short, launched about 3 years ago, and within a few weeks and over the course of, since its launch, has 523 opt-in members representing 379 business organizations across the country. It's a member-led and volunteer-driven division that leverages the expertise of its members to expand a learning network of chamber professionals trying to work in their communities and make them more competitive through developing their workforce. And division members vary in the level of engagement and capacity to do this work, but whether chambers are interested in policy, programs, communications, or full-scale systems reform efforts, the division's mission is to meet chambers where they're at and to support and strengthen the impact businesses can have on strengthening the cradle-to-career pipeline. We have a 14-member advisory board that serves as a thought leadership for our division, and I'm happy to have Ellen on the call, who is part of our advisory board, as well as Dana and Heather, who represent champions spearheading this work within their chambers and communities. And I'll share some of the programs and resources we have that leverage their expertise and allow us to share some best practices. So the next slide has a little bit of an overview of some of our programming, and I'll backtrack a little bit to make a quick case, which I know will be reinforced by some of the other presenters on the call, which is to say why chambers are so crucial to ensuring the cradle-to-career talent pipeline is strong and producing the kind of skilled workforce that businesses seek to meet the demands of a globally competitive economy. And that's because as economic development hubs within their communities, chambers serve as the aggregate voice of business, and they're neutral intermediaries within their communities that can bridge the needs of business with education stakeholders who are charged with preparing the future workforce for success. They can voice the skills and competencies needed to sustain their leading industries that they've heard from their business partners, what the available jobs are and the kind of talent that's needed to fill them. And they're able to leverage their relationships with their business leaders and connect them with their education communities. That's through volunteering their time, their resources, and their expertise. And most of the time we'll see that those relationships are seen, those partnerships is seen as win-wins for both the education and business communities. And so the division, the Education Attainment Division, has launched a series of programs that connects peers and allows the sharing of best practices and challenges to expand this learning network of chamber professionals and community stakeholders as well that want to engage more about business. And I won't go into details. We have a programs page and I'm happy to connect with anybody that would like some more information about the programs. One of them is the ACC Fellowship for Education Attainment, which Heather, who will present later, just graduated from the first cohort, which is a testament to the expertise that we have in the room. And we essentially developed the curriculum around throwing these chamber leaders in a room and letting them learn from one another. So as over the course of the last 3 years, as we've gone and collected and heard stories from chambers across the country, we've been really excited to find all of the exciting initiatives and leadership out there. And so there are scalable and replicable practices and initiatives, and essentially we try to collect them and share them so that communities know that they don't have to reinvent the wheel as far as working with their chambers and engaging business. On the next slide, I wanted to highlight one resource, which is our Deeper Learning case studies. And deeper learning is a term that our partners at the Hewlett Foundation use to describe what are often referred to as soft skills. But what we learn from chambers and their business communities are anything but soft and are actually very crucial to and necessary to succeed in the workforce. So these 21st century skills and competencies include critical thinking, communicating effectively, collaborating with others. And so deeper learning reflects a type of instruction that uses interactive techniques such as project-based learning and real-world application and helps students master core academic content, but also helps them connect the relevance of their schoolwork to success in the real world. And you'll see that New Jersey Chamber is featured as one of our case studies, and I have Dana to thank for providing some of the information for what they've been doing over several years to create pathways and work-based learning opportunities for their students, and so she'll talk more about that. And on the next slide, I'll talk about, so the chambers reflected in these deeper learning case studies have facilitated partnerships with high schools, their community colleges, local trade and technical schools, as well as their business leaders to combine learning with real-world application and align curriculum with the needs of the workforce. And that's to make sure that students that are graduating from high school are both college and career ready, with an emphasis on the career. And so some successful chamber-led workforce development strategies we've seen often leverage the chamber's relationships with businesses and provide opportunities to connect students with the jobs of tomorrow, meaning they can learn what's out there, learn the skills, training they need, experience those jobs firsthand, and then think about their next steps after school to get there, whether that's vocational training, certificates, four-year degree programs, etc. And some strategies we've seen and highlighted are in a series of thematic deeper learning case studies, and one of those includes work-based learning opportunities. For example, one example is Greater Spokane Incorporated, their Work 101 program. It's a partnership with the Chamber, their local school districts, and their Area Workforce Development Council that connects students with companies in their high-demand industries, and that they provide job shadowing opportunities and internships, and that help these students build real-world skills in industries within their community. Another program we feature is the New Jersey Chamber's Remote Internship Experience, which is an immersive project-based program overseen by the Chamber that provides students with a collaborative project-based learning experience, and it's also done at less of a cost to manage than a traditional internship program. Another strategy we see is chambers providing training for teachers to tie curriculum with what students will see in their future careers. Some training is provided through after-school workshops to more immersive training involving teachers and students taking classes at their local universities, so students can get college experience while teachers receive career-based teaching credentials. One example, the Dayton Area Chamber created a STEM curriculum for teachers where through a fellowship program, key leaders within the defense community in Dayton made their team of engineers and scientists available to work directly with teachers and students. And through that program, over 900 teachers across 92 school districts were trained in STEM-specific curriculum. And another theme we've seen is different ways to create pathways for future careers through helping students and parents get connected directly to businesses so that they can envision their future careers and get the skills needed to get there. And for example, Greater Des Moines Partnership, another example of a best practice that we've seen, they have a career preparation academy which teaches students how to be attractive candidates for jobs and build their resumes, conduct interviews, use social media properly, skills and training that they wouldn't necessarily get in high school but should, starting earlier than that. And Greater Spokane Incorporated's Business After School program, which is a series of week-long industry workshops for students, educators, and parents that educate them about Spokane's high-demand industries and what you need to get to those jobs. The next slide is an overview of our best practices library, which we have many more examples of chamber-led initiatives in ACC's online Chamberpedia, which are regularly updated and expanding web pages highlighting chamber initiatives and buckets across the cradle-to-career spectrum. So pages include case studies, customizable resources, and communications briefs, talking points that are targeted to engage business members and different community stakeholders, and tools like that to further expand this network of learning. And so most of the resources related to internship programs are in the K through 12 and workforce development pages. And I'll end by saying that if you're interested in learning more about ACCE, the Education Attainment Division, or work that's being done in your community or similar communities, my contact information is on the next slide. and I'm happy to connect with you further. And I will also turn it over now to Ellen Horan, who is the President and CEO of the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce and Industry and a member of the Education Attainment Division's Advisory Board. So thank you, Ellen.
Great. Thank you, Jessie. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about a community collaboration approach to filling a workforce pipeline. And I'm also going to make a pitch to the Chambers of Commerce out there to taking a lead role in bringing partners to the table. So if we could go to the next slide, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing in the Greater Reading area that I think illustrate what I mean by taking a collaborative approach for the good of the community. Some of it is chamber-led and some of it is chamber-supported. Pulling partners to the table, we pull individual businesses, the K through 12 school leaders, our career and technology centers. We have a community college, we have 4 universities, our economic development partners, and also our workforce investment board, as well as some community organizations in addition to this. And collectively, we have a much bigger impact and across a wider continuum than certainly the chamber could do on our own, and certainly more than the schools could do on their own. At the elementary school, the United Way has a really neat program called Ready, Set, Read. And they've embraced a niche where they feel they can have an impact in reaching a goal of having, I forget if it's 100% or 95% of third grade students throughout our MSA reading on third grade level at the third grade. Which is not currently the case. The Chamber serves on that board of directors and helps in recruiting some volunteers for guest readers. They very much do a lot of tutoring, and they like to rely on retired school teachers to do that. But they do lean on the Chamber for the guest readers, and we're very supportive of that initiative. At the middle school level, there's a program that the Chamber spearheads, and it's called Choices. It is a licensed program. We buy the license. I believe it costs us about $5,000. You pay per student, and we deliver this program to the entire 8th grade of our inner city school, the Reading School District, and that's 1,200 students. And we do that at the classroom level, and you tag team present. So you can imagine the number of volunteers this requires. It requires over 100 volunteers to do this program over 2 days. But it talks to the students at that critical 8th grade, middle school, about to go into high school level about how their decisions impact so many things down the road, really for the rest of their lives. But it does it in an interactive way that's taught on their level. In the 9th grade, the entire 9th grade in the county, so that's 18 school districts, is invited to send their students on a business visitation. Our Business Education Coalition takes the lead in organizing this. There's about 15 businesses that open their doors for a week with different school districts coming in each day. The Chamber does morning assemblies at each of the school districts, kind of prepping them on what to expect. We also then, the students go back at lunchtime to their home schools, and we then do at the classroom level have volunteers in on the classroom doing a debrief. What did you hear? What did you learn? What do you think about it? But it's trying to get that work behavior expectation as well as some career awareness going. At the 12th grade level, we do a career fair. At our inner city school in particular, the principal there is passionate about every student leaving that school district, leaving school with a plan. And many, it's a very low-income school, many do not. So we do a career fair to talk to them about the types of job expectations you can have given the level of education that you have. At high school, these are the types of jobs you can have. If you would go get a certificate program or a 2-year degree, these are the types of jobs that are in the community. And these are the types of jobs with 4-year and beyond training. And we also have the educational institutions participate in that career fair, hoping to catch a few more students that haven't made their plans to continue their education to consider that. and that touches about 1,000 students at the Reading High School. Another program that our economic partnership takes the lead on is called Careers in 2 Years. And it's really a neat public relations campaign, encouraging the public, trying to reach parents and people, displaced workers, people that are in the workforce but maybe are underemployed, trying to educate them on the value in certificate and 2-year programs. We still have a very strong manufacturing base here, and the technician level employee, what we hear a lot about, the skill gap, that's what this program is geared towards. And interestingly, we have seen a bump in students going into our technical academies, which are a bridge between our career and technology centers and our community college. There's been a nice bump in that, but nowhere near the number that we need. And most recently, our Workforce Investment Board, the Chamber is actually the nominating organization for the Workforce Investment Board, so that's our tie-in there, and we serve it on a number of committees. But they've recently received a grant to work with the schools to better define what high school level internships could look like. And the Chamber will participate in that, being invaluable and connecting them with employers that would be receptive to that type of program. If we could go to the next slide, just some general observations. I commented before why I think chambers are ideal catalysts to serve as the entity in pulling the parties to the table. We get the big picture. We get how workforce plays into our economy, plays into our quality of life, plays into individuals' ability to be successful and to be good citizens. But we're also good at implementing. We pull off a lot of programs on a regular basis. We're used to corralling lots of people. We also have relationships with most of the players that do need to be at the table. Academics tend to meet and speak with other academics. Economic development people, have their niche. Chamber kind of overlaps all of those organizations in the community and has relationships with all of the organizations, as well as the businesses that we want to better connect with the schools. And lastly, we have a volunteer base second to none. The programs that I had mentioned that we've been active with in just this past year alone, we probably had about 400 volunteers participate in those. I think one that I had missed was a leadership conference that we that we had 350 students and we had 250 mentors volunteer. So we almost had we had better than a 2-on-1 relationship there for the students to be exposed to business professionals. Next slide. Where my chamber is to date, we are helping to create a community vision in forming a stronger workforce pipeline and how that will improve our competitiveness as well as our quality of life. But we're also ready to put our money where our mouth is and to be on the implementing end of this as well. So I think we've built the case for chamber leadership on this by jumping in and doing some programs. Any one of those programs isolated would have minimal impact, but collectively it's having a much bigger impact on our community. And where we're at now is kind of these last 2 blocks there on the bottom. Seeking additional resources to properly support the program. This was something that resonated with me at an ACCE program that I had attended. We were starting to get more involved in workforce development, and one of the presenters said, don't think you can do this well with taking one of your staff people and freeing up even half of their time. And that's exactly what we were doing. And I was like, oh, geez, I thought that was, a big commitment on our part, freeing up a half a person's time. But I get it now. To do it well, we're going to have to have someone more dedicated to this. We've recently gone through being approved for a tax credit that is a Pennsylvania state program that's going to help us with that. Like many chambers, we had a foundation that we were using passively. We're now using that proactively to garner resources from corporate foundations and looking at grant opportunities through our foundation. And the other area that I think we need to do a better job on is the measurement end of this, which will help then in seeking funding. We measure currently by tracking activity. We need to get to the point where we're tracking impact, and that's kind of a next step for us to do a better job on that. So next slide, my contact info is there, and with that, I'd like to pass the program over to Dana Egretsky. She is Senior Vice President of Workforce Development for the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Ellen. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone, I guess, depending on where you are. So my job today is to talk about the remote internship experience. If we could have the next slide, please. I also serve, by the way, as the head of the Chamber Foundation, and as we're waiting for this slide to come up, I will mention that I've been at the State Chamber for almost 19 years. I was previously at countywide chambers, and then prior to that, I spent 16 years as a middle and high school science teacher. So when we talk about impacting kids who are currently in school, I kind of have a leg in both worlds, and that has served me quite well. The remote internship experience has actually been adapted from work that we've done with students in our college and career-ready programs for years now. Hundreds and hundreds of kids we've served in our workshops, our school day workshops, our after-school workshops, and our summer school programs. We've lost count of the kids. Keith, in my introduction, Keith mentioned that we also support a program with corporate contributions. We support a program called Learn, Do, Earn. That's online curriculum that is also college career ready. In New Jersey, we have a highly skilled workforce. We need, in fact, research, some of the latest research we're seeing, we're going to need in New Jersey more college graduates than any other state in the next 10 years except one. In other words, if we don't produce at least a second in line for the college graduates that have to come in our doors, then we're going to be seriously in trouble with our companies not having the appropriate people they need. So we do push college, but we also push career readiness. So Learn, Do, Earn, by the way, is free online. At the end, I think they'll be showing you my contact information if anyone would like to access that curriculum for use with their partners. We certainly would be happy to give you a password into that. But the remote internship experience meets 4 important targets that we have. Obviously, the Chamber Foundation is dedicated to building more highly qualified workforce, and that's where we have to start. To do that, we need to improve student awareness of workplace demands and better equip them for their future. We find absolutely consistently that our employers are telling us over and over and over again, nobody is coming to them prepared enough. So our view is the more preparation you can give them before they get out in the real world, the better they'll succeed, and that's how we came up with some of the ideas that we integrated into the remote internship experience. We like to engage volunteers from our membership because that also promotes corporate contributions. We do live off corporate grants and corporate sponsorships. But with this particular program, we also aimed to be eligible for funding from Perkins, WIOA, Title I. And in fact, we've already secured about just under $40,000 in contracts for the coming school year, and it's only June. So we're doing pretty well in terms of making budget under this program. I have a staff that goes out and does a lot of these a lot of this program work with our schools and our colleges, so I need to support them and the projects. So next slide, please. I'm going to tell you what the remote internship experience is at the very end. I'm going to tell you instead what it's going to do first. We believe that it will prepare students for, or actually can replace, a traditional internship. And it costs much less than standard internship programs because when the students in high school or the students in college are involved, they are either in their school building or they are on their campus. They do not come to our building. That's why it's called the remote internship experience. This gives them the opportunity to work remotely, self-manage, assess their time needs, assess their project needs, work as a team, a self-guided team, all the skills that most employers are going to need, and by the way, many of the skills that many employees are going to need, because a lot of employees are going to be or are currently working remotely, not with their boss having daily oversight. It also allowed us, by the way, conceiving of this as a remote internship, it allowed us to greatly expand the numbers of students we can work with. It's almost virtually unlimited, the number of students we can work with. However, since we do volunteer, we bring in volunteers during the process, it can connect the participants with the potential employers while keeping employer commitment to a minimum. I've been working in this field for years and years and years, and I've never seen corporate so tight in terms of the amount of time people can actually spend outside of their work world. They have, everybody's running leaner and meaner, and they have a lot of work, and so we want to lessen the demands on our companies for our programs. As an ex-teacher, I can say that having observed interns in our building and elsewhere, I can tell you that most of them are assigned boring, boring duties. They stand in front of copying machines, they stuff envelopes, they go get coffee, and very rarely do they ever get to tap into their individual creativity and really start flying the way they will when they're professionals or skilled workers in the workplace. And that's a shame, because sometimes those kinds of traditional internships where a company will hire a kid and really all the kid needs to do is get there on time and stand in front of the copying machine, as an ex-teacher, I think that is actually a disincentive to want to come to work. So we work very hard to create a program that really turns them on, in which they have the ability to create things, and then they have the ability to compete and win, because there's nothing like competition to spur human hormone production. We also have the opportunities to engage instructors in real time. The instructors are there with us. We sit and work with them tightly as we work with the kids. So if I find that a child I'm working with can't construct a budget, I can just kind of give a signal to the math teacher, and the math teacher can come over and help that person. But the project does require the practical application of English and some math. So if I could have the next slide, please. So the benefits to the students include things like it allows the student to affiliate or to have an internship with a highly respected 100-year-old business association. The New Jersey Chamber of Commerce actually hit its 100th year a couple of years ago. Thomas Edison was actually one of our founding board members. It places the burden for recruiting and training business people on chamber staff, once again lessening the burden on schools and agencies, saving them money. We can draw on our member roster. They don't have quite that level of business person access. It builds on our impeccable reputation at the Chamber Foundation for pedagogically strong student programs. Nothing goes out under my watch that isn't pedagogically strong. It helps students learn to function in a team, work independently, manage their time, again, all skills that employers need. And perhaps most importantly, it helps students understand the demands that future employers will make of them, but they can make mistakes in our safe environment, in that they're not going to lose a job or a job opportunity if they fail with us. Next slide, please. In fact, those who fail will not be rewarded. You'll see in a minute what they get if they complete and succeed. But those who fail, nobody will ever know that they fail. We don't keep a list of failed students. We keep a list of successful students. And then if they fail, they can try again next semester or the following year, whenever their school or their agency wants to recycle them. But there are significant rewards for successful students. The first is that they, if they complete, they get to add the state chamber internship to their resumes. They get a letter of recommendation from a chamber executive that they can use during job interviews and job searches. The top 10% of students who participate in any of our cohorts are featured in the Chamber magazine. So out of a cohort of, let's say we're working with 20 kids, 4 in teams of 5 teams, or 5 on a team of 4 teams, however the numbers work out. The top 10% of them, anywhere between 2 or 3 out of that 20-some kids, would be featured in our Chamber magazine, a little picture of them. If they're over 18, of course we would, if they're under 18, we'd of course get parental consent. And they would be featured as our top internships, and we can connect them to our employers who are possibly interested in them. And they also receive something a little, it looks like a little passport. It's called the Performance Passport. And as they proceed through the program, the remote internship program, they earn stickers in the passport. If they don't come late at any time, they get a little sticker for punctuality. If they show leadership in a team, they get a sticker for leadership or teamwork. If they come, well prepared, they get a sticker for that. There's about 25 stickers they can earn through the program, because it's very hard for kids to document soft skills when they don't have background of previous employment that a potential employer can call a reference and say, how are their soft skills? So we give them the Performance Passport. Next slide, please. In this program, we work with older high school students, grades 11 or 12, first-year community college students, and older special needs individuals as appropriate. We work anywhere with 20 to 60 students, again, in teams of 5, in groups of 20. So if a school wants us to do 60 students, we do them in 3 groups of 20. We spend an entire day there instead of half a day, and therefore we can charge less per student. And our costs range from $163 to $220 per student. Colleges receive customized proposals. The remote internship experience is highly structured. It is a project-based learning experience with a lot of latitude for students to fail, a lot of latitude for students to be creative, a lot of latitude for students to succeed. But it is highly structured. We want them to meet certain benchmarks so that we know when they're not working and we know when they're doing well. And if it's a college student program, there's actually 12 structured experiences. We go into a little more depth at the college level about self-evaluation against performance. Next slide, please. The entire project plays out in the school that has hired us or in the college that has hired us, but under our management and volunteer management. We usually harness 1 or 2 volunteers locally. We bring them in as the student managers, and or as student managers, not that they're students, but the volunteers become the managers of the students. And what the students do for the actual work is they deploy a social entrepreneur project that will improve the life of a peer, an equal-aged student, a younger child, a senior or disabled citizen, or an animal, or positively impact the environment. So the teams can pick a project that hits on any of those activities, but they are the ones who conceive the idea, who develop a project plan, who actually deploy the project, and then they evaluate their projects based on data collected. They also have to come up with a way to collect data and evaluate their project. When they've hit certain benchmarks along the design and deployment plan, we approve them. They must also get school administration approval, and we also give them, each team gets a budget of $100 to spend however they want, and they have to go through a budget approval process. Again, very much like the exact process that that a group of business people working in a collaborative team would have to either enjoy or endure. And if we have the next slide, please. And a lot of that money is spent on sometimes the printed material they need, transportation to a local destination to buy toys for children, or whatever their project is. So next slide. There we go. Now, we like to do what we call the monkey wrench solution. At some time that we plan the whole thing out when we walk into a school with the educators and the principals. We plan the whole thing out with the teachers, and we tell them, when do you want the monkey wrench? And basically, we engineer an unanticipated challenge where the teacher knows that we will deliberately not send them something that they are expecting, meaning the kids or the students in college. So we send them incomplete paperwork, we miss a teleconference, we don't respond in a timely manner, something that we deliberately engineer so that students are challenged to cope with real workplace issues, learn how to deal with authority figures in appropriate ways, especially if the authority figure isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and add a little pressure so they work collaboratively with their team members under pressure, and you'd be surprised at how much angst that brings out. And of course, as I said, all anticipated challenges are prearranged. Next slide, please. Students will have to resolve unexpected situations and will be challenged to meet their objectives, stay on time and under budget, and define and gather data that measure impact in quantifiable ways. And again, these are all both experiences and traits that employers value. Final slide, please, on the presentation. So one of the first things that the team does at the outset of the project is they appoint a team historian. And I should be on slide 31. There we go. That's right. Thank you. So they appoint a team historian, and from the very first minute that historian is appointed, and that's in their first meeting, the team historian starts taking notes and recording quotes and jotting down good and bad and ugly things that happen. And at the end of the project, the team sits down and reviews the team historian's notes, and they begin constructing, and with the data that they've gathered after they deploy their project, they begin developing a presentation, which they then deliver to a panel of business people at the end of the project, and then the panel selects the winning team. So in our project, very much like in the world of work, there are two ways to win. You can, sorry about this one. I was afraid to turn that off in case my cell phone didn't work, so I'm sorry about that ringing in the background. Anyway. So they get to win as either a individual or as part of it, or the team gets to win. As an individual, they win if they complete the project and they get our, to add the experience to their resume, they get a letter from our executive, or they become one of the top performing 4-star interns. They get to win as a team, and if they win as a team, they get small cash bonuses. And all the way, from beginning to end, they learn to deal with a certain amount of independence. They work independently, but we constantly approve each decision as you would in the workplace and give them the go-ahead or go back and revise a decision from management. So that's the remote internship experience. Next slide, please. And I think the next slide is my contact information. You can certainly email me at any time. And in case you don't want to take the challenge on of actually spelling my last name, another valid email for me is dana@njchamber.com, so you don't have to worry about the last name. Next slide, please. And now at this point, I would like to hand it over to Heather Volute. And next slide, please, who is the Advocacy Director at the Lancaster Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is kind of just around the block from us.
Very good. Well, thank you, Dana. I'm Heather Volute. I'm the Advocacy Director for the Lancaster Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'm going to talk today about how we in our community strategically prioritize connecting business and education. I'm going to focus on 3 key areas. One will be the process we undertook to have that strategic prioritization come into place and the impact that had at focusing our efforts on connecting business and education. The second will be the steps we took to lift and legitimize education as a business issue. And then the third one will be an initiative that we work on called Career Connect, which is a database that connects students to career exploration opportunities in our community. So next slide. First up is the idea of how we made the case with the business community. For a long time, we recognized that business leaders understood the importance of having educated workers, but that didn't translate to them engaging in efforts around how we get more students into the occupations that are reflected in our own community. So in 2011, we had a business and education task force start to look at some of these issues, and that really allowed us to develop strong relationships with our education sector. In Lancaster County, we have 16 school districts, and then we have a number of private schools and different educational institutions. And so through this initiative, we really got all of them at the table and involved and started having as many conversations as we could with our education sector and getting them in front of the business community. So over the course of the year, the task force talked through these various different areas and determined some priorities that we wanted to work on to ensure both that students were prepared for the workforce and that educators were aware of businesses' needs. So we had 3 key strategies. The first one focused on increasing the communication between those 2 groups. We decided that through facilitated and purposeful discussions, we would be able to better connect them. So one of the things, just an example of this, one of the things that we offer in our chamber is manufacturing plant tours. For a while, those in the manufacturing industry would come and they would just hear more, about best practices. But what we started to do was say, well, do we bring education to the table on this? And so we've had 2 different plant tours that have focused that way. One, we had teachers come in, they walked through with the industry folks, with the manufacturing sector folks, and then they had a sit-down discussion afterwards and talk through some business issues and workforce issues as it related to their sector. We've also done a similar style with our higher education institutions and some tools that they have for workforce development. So we've found that that's been a good strategy to have these kind of facilitated dialogues. The next thing we did was we really decided, in my role, I'm the advocacy director, so I do a lot around our legislative work, and we decided there needed to be a focus on this from an advocacy perspective as well. Businesses are used to needing to contact their legislators for some different things. Education is used to that on their side as well. But what we wanted to do was create a dynamic where business was in the room advocating for education, and education was in the room advocating for business. And so we came up with a joint position statement where there were common themes that everybody agreed on, things like pension reform, mandate relief in education, changing the way we budget, the way our budget works to give educational institutions dollars, different things like that, things that we could get to some common ground on. And that's been really successful. A few years back, we had somebody say, I've been going to these meetings as an educational representative for 30 years, and this is the first time I've ever sat in a room and had business sit down and talk about one of our issues so directly and really advocating for us. So I'm really encouraged by that. Next slide, which would be slide 34. I just wanted to talk through a bit. So the other key priority area that we had was this importance of career exploration. That was really key for the task force. At our chamber, we have a database called Career Connect, and about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago at this point, we decided that we knew career exploration was an area that we wanted to be engaged in, and that it was an area where the business community would come to the table and put themselves out there to help students get a better understanding of the types of careers that were out there. So as you can see on the slide, we list out some different types of career exploration activities. There's things like informational interviews, workplace visits, job shadowing, career fairs. But what it really does for students is it helps them identify their interests. It gives them some skills that they can see in practice, and it gives them that practical application of what they're learning in the classroom. And then it also helps them to see, okay, what's the path to the career that I want? So on the next slide, you'll see a screenshot of a database that we have, and it's actually at this point now its own website, LancasterChamberCareerConnect.com. And what this website does allow students to do is it's a tool for them to go online and find companies that are offering opportunities for them in career exploration. You'll see here there's two different buttons there that they can choose. It's a little small, but it says, I have a career in mind, let's get started, or not sure where to start, how about a little help? And so, some students come into this and they have a sense of what they want to do and what kind of opportunity they're looking for. And other students, their school is encouraging them to take a career exploration opportunity, but they don't really know what they want to do or how they want to use that. So what the Not Sure button does is it allows them to take a look at various different broad industries. So it's things like marketing or arts and recreation or manufacturing and industrial. And it's kind of these broad industry sectors, but if they click on a little button beside it, it shows them some sample occupations. So trying to give kids a sense of different occupations that fall into these various different sectors. On the next slide then, you'll see another screenshot of the site. And on this site, on this screenshot, what it's showing is if a student goes in there, they can refine their search. They can put in their zip code, their age, pick what type of opportunity they're looking for in what type of industry, and then it brings them back a listing of the various different companies that are offering an opportunity in that way. And then they can directly connect with that company through the website. We have every company we have an email for. There's a point of contact within their company, and that person then coordinates with the student to get them these in-site visits. Next slide. You'll see just an overview of some of our statistical information there. So we really base the Career Connect concept on this idea that we know education works best and is the most useful for future careers when students can apply what they're learning in school to real-life, real-work situations. Our analytics show that we've had over 2,000 users of the site in the past year, which is really encouraging for us. It's a lot more than we had had previously. And many of those are likely to be students, parents, teachers. In a lot of the school districts, we work directly with the guidance counselors to set up these opportunities for the students. We go out and have conversations with our superintendents, with the school districts, with the teachers, with the counselors, and really get them familiar with the site so that they can help the students find the best opportunity for them. I will say one of the areas that we continue to struggle with is while the businesses that are engaged really enjoy the opportunity, and we also have some other programs that our businesses help us with, things like a mentoring program that we do through the chamber, Pathways to Gold Collar Career event. We work with our WIB closely, but what we're struggling with right now is how we get more businesses to actually sign up on the site. It's a simple process. It's really easy to do online, but it's just getting that out in front of people. And I think it comes back a bit to what Ellen had said, dedicating staff and resources to kind of getting the word out there about some of this stuff, and just how we prioritize that within our chamber and our staffing model. So that certainly continues to be a struggle. That said, in the next quarter of the year, we'll be focusing on communicating with our members directly on the concept of that doing things like this will improve our competitive advantage by better connecting business and education to advance workforce development. Through the fellowship that Jesse had mentioned at the beginning of the call, we came up with regional action plans, and mine is focused on linking Lancaster, and it's around this idea that we need to link the people in our community to the opportunities available to them. And so one area of that will focus on connecting these students to these career exploration opportunities. So next slide here is just my contact information, but I do encourage you to go to our website if you're interested in more information for Career Connect. It's LancasterChamberCareerConnect.com, and happy to have had a chance to share with you today. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jean, and she will walk us through some question and answer.
All right, thank you so much, Heather. We do have a question that came in, and I know that, but I want to remind our participants how they can ask a question today. Through the webinar tool, you'll see an Ask Question button on your screen. Go ahead and click that button, type your question in, and I will get that queued up for our presenters today. So this first question is for Heather. They've said it's for Ms. Volute. Of the 2,000 site users, how many have translated into visits with participating companies?
So, good question. We're actually discussing that internally right now. All we're able to see is the first line of communication. So if a student takes that and uses our site to connect with the business, we can see that. We don't have an actual metric within the site that counts it, so we have to do that by counting copied emails, which is what they're working on right now. So we don't have a true sense of that, which makes it difficult to prove the success of this, and I recognize that. But we do know that through our counselors in our school districts, there are hundreds of students that are going out on these opportunities. Some of our school districts require that the students call the company, and when that's happening, we'll never have any idea that it's coming from Career Connect. We'll know that we had a visitor to the site, but we won't know if that visitor then actually made the connection through us, or if their mom knew somebody at a company and that's how they ended up getting a job shadow opportunity. So it's a little difficult to have the actual metric on number of students that connected with an opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Our next question, what are trends of local business involvement in career awareness and workforce readiness programs and initiatives for high school students?
This is Dana from the New Jersey Chamber. I'll answer that a little. I've been in this business for 25 years at 3 different chambers, and I would say that the trends we see, at least in New Jersey, are that the businesses are actually getting less involved. And I mentioned this a little bit in my presentation. Especially since 2008, we see a huge decrease in involvement after the recession. A lot less staff available to do this. Budgets are a lot tighter. They're culling a lot more specifically through their pre-employment tests. There are a number of factors that are playing into this, but hopefully the pendulum will start swinging soon as and if the economic recovery continues. Right now we know that there are 10 million people without jobs and about 5 million jobs left unfilled, mostly in STEM fields that no one's qualified to fill. And I think when those things start really hurting employers, they're going to need to get more involved and help kids understand that they need to participate in school, fully participate as students, academically, socially, every which way, including career experiences, the kinds that the 3 presenters, including myself, offered if they want a job. So hopefully we're, I hope, at the bottom of the trend, and I think maybe things will start turning around as the economy gets better.
All right, thank you, Dana. Okay, our next question. Do you happen to know the percentage of schools in your coverage area that actually offer at least a semester-long career exploration course, something substantial over a period of time, not just a one-time event?
I think, this is Heather from the Lancaster Chamber, I think a number of our high schools, so we have, as I stated, we have 16 school districts in Lancaster County. I want to say almost all of them offer an opportunity for students that they take a course that's like a career exploration, career development kind of course within their high school curriculum. There may be 1 or 2 school districts that aren't offering that, but a lot of our schools are doing that in the 10th or 11th grade year. Some of our school districts have made it that a requirement for graduation is that they do have these job shadow experiences in place, or they've done an internship experience or something along those lines. So I think there's really been a commitment on the education side of things to try and get these students out with these opportunities. But certainly that kind of changes as funding changes or different things like that change. But there has been, I would say, a local commitment from 80 to 90% of our schools to say we're going to have our students engaging in some type of career exploration.
This is Dana. This is Anna from New Jersey. I would say in New Jersey it's almost reversed. We probably have about 10 to 20%, excluding the vocational schools, we probably have about 10 to 20% of schools who offer something like that to their general education high school population. New Jersey really drives kids hard to go to college, and most kids believe they're going to college. They may or may not get there or graduate, but ultimately the bottom line is that very few high schools offer something like this, and I think actually that's not going to get any better. And there's a big part of me that says it's just going to have to not get better, because even as we upgrade the testing requirements on schools, and the Chamber here in New Jersey, we support the new assessments. In our schools also they have also a significant level of coursework they have to finish just to get a high school diploma. So I don't think that's going to change. That's why we like doing things after school on weekends and during the summer.
Dana, I'd like to ask you and the other speakers, do you see any movement in schools to get students thinking earlier, like early in high school and even middle school, about their interests and skills, and just to get them beginning to think about careers?
Well, since you mentioned my name, Keith, I'll jump in, and the answer to that is I don't see it happening again.
Okay.
Certainly not in freshman and sophomore year. Again, the teachers are so inundated with new math standards, new English standards, new science standards. That is 100% of their focus right now, and rightly so. I think what begins happening is that the student population begins to self-select a little. By 11th and 12th grades, the students have kind of let the teachers know that they're not going to college. Very few in New Jersey will reveal that at that age, and then they get cycled into some level of career readiness program. But for the most part, not early enough. But again, for us, it's a double-edged sword. We can't expect kids not to learn their math. In New Jersey, you need to know your math, you need to have your science, you need to have your language. I can't be advocating for 9th and 10th graders to also have career readiness, because we're out there beating teachers up because the kids can't do their math. And our state results in math, even for a top-performing state like New Jersey, they're going to be released shortly. And the Algebra 2 results are like a punch in the stomach in terms of how well and not well kids are doing.
Thank you. That's kind of contradictory forces at work.
Indeed.
Okay, thanks, guys. I'll move to the next question. What advice and strategies do you have for people in the education sector engaging a local commerce chamber?
Well, this is Ellen. I would say just ask. Chambers of Commerce are used to being pulled in a lot of directions, and Chambers of Commerce are learning that they need to change. Just hanging your hat on being a networking organization is not sustainable. There's a gazillion ways to network. Chambers of Commerce that are growing and are more progressive are those that are looking to have an impact in their community. If you have a progressive Chamber of Commerce, they will be receptive. So if they haven't reached out to you, reach out to them. And if it's a progressive chamber, they're going to be willing to answer the call.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. What are trends and best practices of local business involvement in K-12 education to encourage career exploration and the development of soft skills such as teamwork and communication?
Boy, that's like all across the board. You know, an inner city poor school is going to approach it much differently than an affluent suburban school. I did a shadow teacher for a day at one of our more affluent school districts, and even at the elementary school, they're working on computers, and they're working in teams, and they're working collaboratively. Then when we go and we're doing the Choices program at the 8th grade at our inner city school, and they don't even carry books and notebooks with them. They just walk from class to class, some of them with a pen, some without a pen. You know, they're not taught to work in teams. They're not taught the same type of study habits. So I think your approach has to match the culture of the school. It can't be a one-size-fits-all.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, and before I ask this question, I just want to remind our participants that they can submit a question. If you just click that Ask Question button, you can type your question right in, and I'll get that queued up for our presenters. So our question is, what recommendations do you have on how chambers of commerce should approach a collaborative role in bringing together individuals and agencies involved in workforce development?
Well, this is Dana, and I think just like the previous question, there's a million different answers that we could offer for that. And every state is different, every area is different. The Lancaster Chamber would be very different than anything we would do in New Jersey, those kinds of things. And I would also echo Ellen's comment. You just need to start. And if you're sensitive to what people are saying and what their needs are and what their goals are, you could probably pull together some level of consortium that would deal with whatever it is that you might want to accomplish through those kinds of relationships. The only, I think, thing that I've learned over time that was, you know, the only real component that you had to always attend to is that you can't just talk about it. Early in, you have to do something that you can quantify that can measure your success. And we've given some, the three of us have given some ideas of the kinds of programs and the kinds of measures you can use so that whomever you're working with gets a sense of accomplishment, talks positively about the program, wants to come back again, and wants to bring others with them. So that would be the only thing I would say that you would do. Get right down to doing something soon and talk as little as possible about the, you know, let's start this and get right to it. Stop talking, pull the trigger.
And I think for, this is Heather from the Lancaster Chamber, I think for us, you know, as you look at something like Career Connected, it is something where business people have to engage in a way that they're having direct interaction with a student, and I think sometimes there's hesitation because they don't know what they should cover, don't know what they should talk about, don't know how to make it apply, so on and so forth. So giving them some tools right out of the gate, too, to assist with that. We're working on developing, it's like a business toolkit that just is, hey, here's some pointers on things to talk about throughout the day as you're doing a job shadow, and here's some ways to make a direct application between what you're doing in your workplace and what they may be doing in their classroom, and just trying to develop some of that, to making it as simple as possible for the business to feel like, okay, I may have to invest the time to have the student here with me, but I don't have to do all this prep and lead work and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you so much for that. We have answered all of the questions that were submitted today, so I'm actually going to move to our last slide and allow Keith Rowland an opportunity to provide some closing remarks.
Thank you, Jean. I want to mention that one very good resource is, and Jesse has really referred to it earlier, is on the website of the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. There are best practices of chambers working with businesses that are highlighted in detail, and I found they're very instructive in the process of how these programs work and learning from them and adapting them and starting things. So that's a great resource. And our listeners, I want to point out that you can reach out to our speakers or to me, and we'll be glad to try to be helpful. As you know, the recording of this webinar will be posted on our bank's website, and I'll let you know when that is, when that's happened. And there is an evaluation that will be sent out, and I welcome ideas of subjects for future webinars related to workforce development and for coverage in our community development publication, Cascade, because we will be doing an issue devoted to workforce development issues later this year. With that, I want to thank our speakers and our listeners, and I'll turn it back to Jean.
All right, thank you, Keith. And I echo Keith's thank you to both our presenters and our participants today. And I did just push out a survey link for a quick and easy reference to that survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. I'll also be sending an email and follow-up to this session. You really only have to fill the survey out once, so you can either fill it out now or when you get that email. So this does conclude our webinar today. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.